of 2 now Sunday morning virtual ministries.
That's true. Exactly.
At St. John's. One of 3 if we include the live stream.
Wow, we're just so techie.
We are very techy. It's great.
It's great. Yes.
So I solicited ideas for Between Two Services a couple of months ago, and one of the ideas that came back was, I really want to hear more about Reading Club and Reading Camp.
Good.
And sort of past, present, future, how the ministry got started here at St. John's, how things are going now. Mm-hmm. I think that's an important story because
it's been hard.
Well, but it's also, I think, a pretty incredible story of resilience and creativity. We want to lift that up. And then also, what do we see for the future?
Oh, good. Well, shall we start with the past first?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, good. Our reading club here at St. John's started as an outgrowth of the reading camp program that was started by the diocese in the early 2000s. It was Ginger Saul's idea, and she got a group of people together, former teachers, and they hatched this plan of a camp where kids who were behind in their reading skills could come and spend a whole week at camp and have intensive remediation in the mornings, and then just have a blast in the afternoons, have fun, have play, but, incorporate some reading activities into the afternoon work too, but mostly it was just to have fun. And the first camp was at the Cathedral Domain, and I was there. I read about it in our bulletin. Linda Reeves went from this church. Also, Marianne Overturf, who was not a member of St. John's at that time, but Marianne was also at that first camp. Marianne made a quilt that week. All the children did a patch, and she put it together during the week. And so the quilt was completely finished by the Friday of camp. And Linda did the photography for that first camp up at the Cathedral Domain. And all of us were back then the second year and just loved, we had a wonderful time that first year. And in the second year, Linda and several people from the Harlan area kind of started pushing to do a camp at the Pine Mountain Settlement School in Harlan County. So Linda and I volunteered to help the Harlan Church get that one started there. So we went up and helped put on that first camp at the Pine Mountain Settlement School, and then Linda and I also helped at that camp instead of the Cathedral Domain. The first year we did both, and we knew immediately that was not a good idea. They're very exhausting camps.
2 of them.
Yeah, and there was 1 week in between where we transported everything from the Cathedral Domain up to Pine Mountain Settlement School, set it up.
Not exactly a week off.
Oh, wasn't it all? And so we were pretty exhausted and said we can't do that anymore. So after that, we just did the Pine Mountain Settlement School one, and we did that for several years. And then it was Linda's idea that we should try to look into at least having a day camp here at St. John's. And so we talked to Father Sutherland about it at that time. He thought it was a great idea, and so we started a day camp here. By that time, there were day camps in Danville and Hazard and Northern Kentucky. But we started one here, and first couple of day camps were just camps, the way we had been doing it in Pine Mountain and at the Cathedral Domain. And then Linda again said, all of these kids are coming. Our school right here. We're not bringing kids from school districts the way we were doing it at Pine Mountain. Why don't we extend this program where we keep reinforcing the skills that we taught during the summer. And so we quickly evolved. I think we were only 2 years. And that was like in 2006, I think, that we started the camps here. And after 2 years, we decided to go to a year-round program. And so we've been a year-round program since then. We meet every other week after school until COVID. The school buses brought the kids from their schools to the church, which is wonderful. And then the parents would come and pick them up here. But COVID has certainly impacted our camps in more ways than one. But that's kind of the history, bringing you up to where we are now, up to COVID time. We just integrated these kids, and of course not all of the ones who came to camp come to the year-round program. It takes a commitment to come to this year-round program. We try to get them so hooked during camp. We do have a good time during camp. We try to get them so excited about it that they will just have to come. And we try to bond them as a group also, which makes them want to see each other since they go to different schools. But they're 4th and 5th graders, so they're going to be going to middle school together. So it gives them friends at middle school that are not just their friends from their very own school.
Right.
So it's good for them in so many ways. And the kids, I counted on we have a plaque in the parish hall that has the names of all the children who have graduated from the whole program. Right, the ones that not only came to camp, but came to the year-round program. And I counted it the other day, and there are 85 kids on that. 85, and that doesn't include, of course, this year's. And we will have a few more this year. But 85 kids have graduated, and from the whole program.
So presumably, could be more than twice as many if camp or
probably 3 times as many. I think the numbers, and I don't know because I haven't added that up, but I know in the brochure it says 233, and and I think we're probably closer to 250 now, kids that have gone through the program. And I know I check every year when the Woodford Sun publishes all the honors that the kids get, and that's a way for me to check and see who's graduating.
Right.
So I always go through and check for the kids who should be graduating that year, and there have been less than 5 kids out of that 250 that I have not found on that list.
Right.
And these are kids who are on track not to graduate from high school.
When they come.
Right. So I think the program it helps these kids gain some confidence in themselves. And so they can buckle down and do what they need to do to graduate from high school. And then, of course, the kids who graduate from our program and graduate from high school, we give the counselors their applications, and they can apply for a $1,000 scholarship from the reading club. If they want to go to college or trade school or whatever they want to do after high school, we'll help with that initial expense. And that, we have to talk about money, and I guess we do. You got to talk about money.
Well, yeah, sure.
You
Platform's yours.
Right. So that's our biggest expense is those scholarships. Right, exactly. They're called the John Darcy scholarships, or most of them are, because the fund was set up by the group that was raising money for us in the name of Roger Reeves, Linda's husband, who died after several years that we were working with this program. And the men of this church started Golf Scramble and raised an incredible amount of money for us for a number of years. When you have a memorial, anything, after a little while, it just kind of fades away. And so, but then John Darcy died also, and he had been the one who had started the scholarship work, the fundraiser, the Golf Scramble. So they named the following monies that came in after him, and we put those into scholarship fund. But if we've had 85 kids who have graduated, theoretically, that would be $85,000. Not all of the kids apply for, thank goodness. It's terrible, but
Right.
because we'd have been wiped out if they all applied for it. But that is our biggest expense. The expense of running the camp itself is minimal compared to that. Fundraising for that is pretty easy. We
Right.
use all volunteers. We'd love to have you volunteer. We
Few
use
more, always welcome.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We use all volunteers for everything, for our teaching. During the camp, we almost always use retired teachers for teaching. The school year program, we have several things that non-teachers can teach. But the summer program, we use retired teachers. And then the afternoons, we need people to help with crafts and food and all sorts of things in the afternoons. So if you would like to help, we would love to have you. And you will have a blast. These kids are so fun to work with. And they can't believe that we're having so much fun. They never want the week to end. Yeah. They're always so sure, reading camp. Ugh. They
Right.
don't want to read. They don't like to read. And by the end of the week, they don't want to go home. So it's a very rewarding thing. So that's my spiel.
That's the spiel.
That's the spiel. Exactly.
So I'm just kind of curious. I've got a couple of questions.
Good.
One, we should probably point out that for the camp and the reading club, I know that you all have had a lot of success with grants in addition to the fundraising.
That's true. We have. That's Marianne and Georgia have done that. Almost all of the work on the grants is work they have done.
Right.
So, yes, we have a grant, and actually I just got the stuff from United Way of the Bluegrass. We have a grant from them. That's the only one I know of right now. But Marianne and Georgia have worked on others. So
Yeah.
we're hoping to find some other, because grant money would be excellent. I mean, any grant writers out there?
Any grant writers?
Yes. Or suggestions for where we could get a grant. We would love that too.
And so then the real question is, and I know that this has been on your mind really since I first came. I came in 2017, so it's almost 5 years, almost to the day, since I came to St. John's. And even then there was a question because the golf scramble had kind of fallen away. However, I mean, I do want to say, like, looking at everything, the fundraising, the proactivity around grant writing, you all have done really well with fiscal stewardship.
Well,
and that's I mean, that we can commend that. I know that
Right.
there's a concern about how do you continue to fund the scholarships.
the scholarships are our biggest fundraising problem. We have members of this church who donate to Reading Club every month. They have some of their pledge
Right.
that goes directly to reading camp. So that is wonderful, and it works so well for us, and it's such a blessing to us. But what we really need is to maybe find businesses who would like to do one of the scholarships, or individuals who would like to do one of the scholarships. Something of that nature, where every year we would know there were 2 or 3 of our scholarships that were paid for.
Right.
And then, we could use what monies we have left that we hope are earning some money for us in the stock market, because we do have some money set aside that we can pull from, but not very much anymore, because we do have to hit it every now and then.
Yeah.
We had, I think, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 5
Yeah.
scholarships, and that's a lot of money. That's a whole lot of money. So that's that's where we need help, and also volunteers. We love our volunteers.
So when we're talking about the kids, this is that come. What reading difficulties do you see? So what is it in general with that when kids come to camp that's holding them behind in reading, and how do you figure out how to address that?
Yeah, of course, each child is different, and the children we try to deal with the most are the ones who maybe have been recommended by their teachers for additional help at school, but they didn't qualify because they weren't quite bad enough.
Right.
So we kind of try to get these kids that are going to slip between the tracks because they're not quite bad enough. Now we get some who are dyslexic and have real serious reading problems, and those we work with and love on and help as much as we can, but we are not qualified to help dyslexic children.
Right.
They need very specialized help. But I know of the 2 or 3 that we were just sure were dyslexic, that they have, all 3 of them that I know of, have been diagnosed with dyslexia, are now getting proper education with help with dyslexia, and are doing really well, really well. But all we can do for them mostly is encourage their parents to just keep pushing for what's going on. But most of our kids, sometimes I think it's kids that were not ready for first grade.
Right.
And so all of those basic skills that you get in those first couple of years,
they were behind and scrambling.
They didn't get them to begin with, and they just built on that, being a little behind and always trying to catch up. So one of the first things we do here is we go all the way back down to the basics. We teach phonics, we teach coding, decoding, taking a word apart, putting it back together again. We do all of this with games, all of it sitting on the floor, playing, and so forth. So it's not a threat. And these skills that the kids have missed out on, and in a day or two in camp, we can find out which skills the kids really need. But also their skills in reading strategies, what to do when you come to a word you don't know what it is. What are the ways you can figure out what that word is. And so we work on strategies, and then comprehension, reading and also trying to understand at the same time you're reading. We've gotten several kids who read fairly well, but they have no idea what they've read.
Right.
They have learned how to decode, and so they can read, but their brain is not registering that this is a message.
Right.
They are just doing the practical part of it without any registration of a message coming in from what they're reading.
There's reading, but not a lot of comprehension.
Not a lot of comprehension. So we can work with that too. And the other thing we work with is writing, because kids who cannot read well do not like to write either. Right. I mean, it just makes sense that if you don't like to read, you don't like to write either. So we work on fun activities that involve writing also, and how to choose a book that you can read on your own.
Right.
That's what we call pleasure reading, and we help the kids. How do you go about picking out a book that you can go and sit in the corner and read all by yourself? You don't need any help at all with it. So it may mean that they get to read all the books they never read in first grade because they couldn't read in first grade. So they get to go back and read those, and then they can move on from there. We take the kids back to where they feel good about themselves and start building from there.
Build the confidence up.
Right. From there, and build the skills up from there. Wherever it is that they are, that's where we take them beyond that. And in the process, every now and then you'll find out that a kid, I've always said maybe they had an ear infection or something during first grade.
Yeah.
And there was a certain sound or a group of sounds that they missed because they weren't feeling well, they missed school, whatever. And I can remember one little child I was reading with, and for some reason, one of the easiest sounds is the M sound. He didn't have that sound.
Interesting.
And all of a sudden, as we were going through reading just a list of words, I looked at him and I said, I think you have a problem with this sound. He said, yeah. So we worked on that. He took off after that because it was just, there were some sounds that he had missed. And so you never know what you're going to find when you're working with kids like this. Little can be something as easy as the M sound. It's usually a little more complicated than that, though. It's almost always vowels. The vowels are mean anyway.
Right.
So we work very hard. That's almost all we do in phonics is work on the vowels and how to identify them visually, how to hear them, and so this is the kind of stuff we do, which sounds deadly dull. But if you ever come up here during reading camp, and you may anytime, and watch these kids, you will see them so involved in what we are doing. They love it. Once they find out, the first day, they're very, very quiet the first day, because can you imagine coming to reading camp when you don't like reading?
Right.
So,
or when you've been told you're bad at it.
Oh, yeah. Well, they know they are. These are not dumb kids.
Right.
They're just behind kids. And so they come dreading it. And then even by the 10 o'clock break the first day, they're kind of bouncing down the stairs. And by noon, they're really bouncing downstairs. It's like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And that's what we want. We want them to say, yeah, I can do this.
Right.
Because if I can do this, then I can do this, and then I can do this. So we find where they can do and move them from there up.
And boost them up.
Right.
Boost their confidence
And lift
up.
them up.
Boost their skills up.
Right.
Yeah, and that's such a transformative ministry, really.
Well, it is, and it is so rewarding to do. It is just, it's a wonderful feeling to help a child honestly find that reading is fun.
Right.
And that, yeah. I can remember one little girl, we were walking, it was graduation day, and she was graduating, and we were walking down the sidewalk. We were going to cross the street and go down to the park to play, because it was graduation day, no classes, we're just going to play. And she had a book with her. And I said, why did you bring a book with you? And she said, when I have a book, I can go anywhere I want to go. Well, I had little problem holding back the tears. I really did, because this was a child who actually was reading fairly well when she came in, but she didn't like to read. She didn't want to read. And this program had built her confidence so that she was a happy camper.
Well, we're just to kind of wrap up, because this is a fascinating conversation, and it's a wonderful ministry, and definitely want to help people, definitely want this to continue as an integral part of St. John's, and encourage people to volunteer and to support financially or through your gifts and talents as a person. Whether you have an education background or you just want to come and be the most popular person in the room, and that's the snack person. But where do you want to see reading camp and reading club go from here? What's the dream for the future for this program?
I think we would like to get it back to where it was before COVID right now. We have had troubles recruiting and having camp. We have finally, just this week, had our first in-person meeting of reading club this year. So we've got 4 or 5 kids who are going to graduate, hopefully, from the program this year. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll have a few, and we only had 2 last year who graduated from the program, and we did that one virtually with them online. But they were going to school virtually, and that did not work at all. So we didn't even attempt a virtual one. What we did was pack packets for the kids this year. Every month they got a packet with books and ideas and stories and games and things like that to play. So that was the best we could come up with. So for the future, I'd like to be back on track, so to say. I think, I think I'm going to leave the dreaming to the next generation of teachers and so forth about the future, because I think we've got a really wonderful ministry up and running, and if we can get it back on track and going again, the way it is now, then the next group of people who take over this ministry could be you. I'll let you dream of where we could go with this next.
It's a good plug. It's sort of like, eventually, I'm sure that you and Mary Ann will want to hand this ministry off to
someone.
So
Right.
we're praying that God will raise up that someone, and we can have a smooth transition coming out of this. Well, I appreciate you coming this morning. Thank you for all that you do, keeping this program going.
Thank you.
COVID has impacted all of our ministries. I'm just impressed and just inspired by the creativity and the resilience. If ever there was a time that a ministry could give up, it would have been this. But you guys have kept it going and have kept it strong, and had an in-person camp last summer and looked to have it in person.
We're planning on one for this summer, June 20th through the 24th. Mark your calendar.
Well, thank you, and good morning.
Bye.